The government side will now proceed with questioning.
Thank you, Chair. Pauline, thank you very much for being here. Certainly, we've been hearing from OREA throughout this process. It's almost, I suspect, since day one, and I anticipate we'll continue to hear from them, subject to whatever may occur here and in the legislature, and should it pass, then during the process of its implementation. So I don't think that's going to change very much in that time. I want to ask you just about the new market in particular. When we introduced this, we certainly sat down with the industry looking at the new home market, because we understand, obviously, as you do in your deputation, spoke to the importance of the industry broadly, the housing industry in Ontario. We looked at the provisions, obviously, of the GST, and determined that an exemption on the new housing purchases shouldn't just parallel the GST, but should go beyond the provisions, the current provisions of the GST.
Madam Chair, I think that we're concerned here in the official opposition, I'm sure the third party is as well, that the parliamentary assistant to the finance minister just told the deputant that nothing's going to change in the bill. And, I think if there's any more reason for the rest of the province to consider these public hearings a sham, is the outright admission by the government that there will be no amendments accepted.
I never said Chair, first,
perhaps you'd like to remove that from the record.
To being interrupted, and for those who were listening, I said no such thing. So if I can continue with my question, I know you don't. If I continue with my question and my comments, we looked at what the GST was doing, and effectively enhanced that position by increasing the provision for the new home sales. There has been a substantive ongoing lobby to look at the capacity to update that federally, and presumably if that were the case and subject to this legislation passing, subject to the legislature, that would become part of that. Would the provision of an enhancement to the current GST, and presumably an HST provision that would better reflect the change in the marketplace, be a better position for the OREA and its members to be able to deal in the housing market? In essence, if the GST were tied to some provision that would parallel the CPI changes since the first introduction of that $350,000 limit.
I'm not sure if I understand.
I'm not sure we understand. If anything that results in lower taxes on housing is welcome.
Yes.
Where I'm coming from, the current provision. The current provision for the GST is $350,000 exemption on purchase.
Yes.
There has been a very strong lobby over time, and I presume the ERA has had this similar position that it should be indexed because of inflation. Because what was valid in 10 years ago is no longer valid today in the context of an exemption on new housing purchase.
I think that we can accept that in principle. We would probably, frankly, defer to the Ontario Home Builders Association for their views on that. Because our association represents, 98% of the resale housing market.
All right.
Not so much.
Yes. So the primary interest you would have then is in the resale market. As opposed to anything that's happening in the new marketplace.
Well, no, we're concerned about both because obviously
There's 1 minute left.
Industry is composed of both.
Okay. You had a figure of some $1,500 in your presentation, I think, early on, as East Transit will attract some $1,500 in taxes. Is that premised on sale value or just the service provided?
That is based on the average sale price in Ontario and all of the services that are added to it.
What would be the average sale price based on that
I
figure?
believe the sale price was just over $300,000.
We used the average MLS sale price in 2008 was $304,000.
Yes.
That's the number we used.
Okay. So the vast majority of that cost obviously the purchase price doesn't directly attract either a GST or a PST, but some services related to the transaction.
It is just the services. It is just the services to that are the related services, which include everything from lawyers' fees, real estate fees, your the move.
Okay, so the average sale.
Thank you.
Sorry, I've run out of time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Sorry, time is up. So I thank you for your presentation at this time. Thank you very much. And I would like...
Madam Chair, just at this...
I would like 1 second to advise the government side that the exhibit that Ms. McLeod was referring to can be filed as an exhibit with the clerk and handed out to all the members and staff. However, it can be distributed to deputants outside the room and not within the chamber. Thank you.
Just for further point of clarification, I'd like to request instant Hansard, a draft instant Hansard as soon as it is possibly made available, perhaps this afternoon, just to clarify the comments. Either somebody is wrong, hopefully we are, that the government isn't going to just give us the bill and not to make any amendments, so that these deputations are actually meant and worth something. So if I could request that.